Guys, this podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Wrestling Collector Shop. The next time you're looking to add the newest wrestling figures to your lineup, you've got to go to WrestlingCollectorShop.com. Started by collectors for collectors around the globe, Wrestling Collector Shop has been serving fans the latest and greatest in wrestling action figures since 2002. Whether you're looking for basics, elites, or ultimates, Wrestling Collector Shop should be your first stop the next time you're looking for wrestling figures. So make sure to go to WrestlingCollectorShop.com and use code SWOGGLE to save yourself 10% on your order. Again, that's 10% off with code SWOGGLE only at WrestlingCollectorShop.com. Hey guys, once again, another episode going Postl, and as you see in the title, it's a career retrospective of sorts. It's all about my time in AIW, Absolute Intense Wrestling, out of Cleveland, Ohio. I talked to George, and I said, hey, I have had kind of a heck of a fun run down in Cleveland. I refer to it as my second home. I refer to myself as Cleveland's favorite stepson. Just had a really fun and kind of viral match and moment with Microman. So I thought we could deep dive into all things me in AIW. But before we go any further, I'm Dylan. That's George. George, hit him with it.
Guys, on all forms of social media at Going Postl Pod, at Dylan Postl, youtube.com/Dylan Postl, dylanpostle.com, prowrestlingtees.com/Swoggle, and of course, swoggleauction.com. Get yourself a free $10 credit over at Whatnot. Dylan?
Yep.
When is the next Whatnot?
The next Whatnot, guys, the next Whatnot. Head over to swoggleauction.com. Get yourself some credit, because the next Whatnot, February 12th, Wednesday, February 12th, a Wednesday night, Whatnot, Wrestling Wednesday, February 12th. We're doing it. We're doing it live. We have some banger items. Landon just pulled some more items from, I don't know where they even came from, where he found them, but they're here, and it's happening. It's happening. And also, Pro Wrestling Tees. George just mentioned the Pro Wrestling Tees. We had 2 new designs uploaded, prowrestlingtees.com/Swoggle. Thanks to Johnny Clash, as we call him on here, Carew, and George himself. 2 awesome design t-shirts over on Pro Wrestling Tees, and a video diary from the we were talking about it today, my time in AIW, but a video diary. It was back. Video diary is back, and it's happening. It's all about my time at this last trip against Microman. That'll be uploaded very, very soon over on YouTube, youtube.com/Dylan Postl.
Well, guys, we have a long story history from Dylan's second home here to cover today. So we're not going to waste any time. That's why the intro is going to be short and sweet today.
Yep.
Dylan, there is one thing we have to do before we get into that. And what is that?
Ad break. Are you a fan of Disney, Pixar, Jurassic Park, The Office, or even WWE? Or maybe you just want a sleek and comfortable pattern shirt? Then you need to check out Roosevelts.com. RSVLTS.com today. Roosevelts makes the most eye-catching and comfortable shirts going today. Whether it's button-ups, or polos, or hoodies, or even hats, and everything in between, Roosevelt's truly has something for everyone. Made for those with the love of sports, pop culture, and so much more, and above all else, having a kick-ass time. This clothing is for the bold and fun, for those who dare mighty things. Roosevelts.com, check them out.
All right, Dylan, let's get started here. We're going all the way back to 2016, man.
Yeah. I got fired. I got fired. 2016, I get released. As I've talked about and everything. Oh my god, I have a hole in my pants. I really like these pants. Just actually at AIW was the death of my fanny pack. The first thing I bought when I got released. And it made its way across the pearly gates, the pearly fanny pack gates.
That's a shame.
Leave the memories alone. It literally was like, I texted Landon and Amanda. I go, it's like weird. I got like weirdly emotional that my fanny pack broke. And I was like, oh, because this thing has been the one thing that's been on with me for this whole ride since I've been released.
I mean, that's
the
a long time to have a fanny pack, man.
And it's lasted so long. And it's been through so much. And it's seen a lot of places. It's a lot of different kinds of currencies have been in it. I love it. And because Dylan Postl hates change, I bought the exact same one. I bought the exact same one. Ripped pants, it's going to be okay. Fanny pack, we're moving forward. But going back to 2016, I get released. The first person I call is Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins. And he gives me the thing that we talked about all the time of, hey, give me an hour. I'll call you right back. One of the places he set me up with was AIW in Cleveland. At that time, he was working there quite a bit, quite regularly. And Chandler Biggins, RIP, former promoter of AIW, along with John Thorne, who is the current promoter and owner of AIW. They both jumped on it. I think Chandler was the one pushing for it. Chandler liked the weird and the odd and the fun. John liked the wrestling. So Chandler Biggins was always a backer of mine. And I didn't know anything about this. I know nothing about AIW, but very, very quickly it would become a second home feeling. Literally my first booking there was it's called J-Lit Weekend, which is their big tournament every year. And Hawkins and I weren't in the tournament, but instead we were in tag team matches. One against two of the students named Weird World, and the other, that was one night, and then the second day it was against Little Guido and Big Mo, who is a very, very large student of theirs that was a member of the FBI for the night. And it was literally my first indie shows ever post WWE. And that weekend I was like, man, I was off to the races. I was tag teaming with my best friend, and I was like, man, I love this. And then it was booking after booking after booking, and quickly becoming almost every month, it seemed, I was in Cleveland. John Thorne and I got very close very fast. I text John Thorne every day. John Thorne and I text literally every day. Just about from real to the random and everything in between. So it was a very, very fast kickoff, and I don't know. It was nice to start there. And I think if I would have started there without Brian, it wouldn't have been as good of a feeling, because I would have been uncomfortable and not come out of my shell like I did. But it was great.
You gave me some highlights that stood out to you from your memory of your time within AIW. Obviously, you started wrestling in 2016, which you just mentioned. It is now 2025 at the time of recording. So you've been there for quite a bit. And
Thorne jokes about it all the time. He goes, I have employed you longer than Vince McMahon employed you. It's coming up very close, very soon.
The first match that you wanted to call out here happens on 9/23/2016. It is Swoggle versus Tracy Smothers at AIW The Whole Shebang
Yeah, so this was Gargano's last show. Johnny Gargano was he was an AIW original. He started there. He was the head trainer at the school. He was the guy. So this was his send-off show. Excuse me. So I then hear I'm booked against Tracy Smothers. And Sanjay Dutt was on the show. And I remember Sanjay coming up to me. He goes, Dylan, you're never going to guess this. Tracy just came up to me and goes, Sanjay, I've wrestled a bear. I've wrestled a woman. I ain't done wrestled no midget before. What do I do? Sanjay literally couldn't breathe. He was laughing so hard. And so we were like, okay, we're going to do a dance off. But before said dance off, we're going to almost turn it into like a lumberjack match, I remembered. And we just had students and Sanjay and all these people just come out and surround the ring for this. And I think it was because these guys wanted to watch the match and see what we did. And so they just were able to stand ringside. Like at one point, I look at Sanjay Dutt's just ringside hanging out. I go, oh, hi. I think Colin Delaney was ringside. It was nuts. It was so awesome. But then it's crazy to think Britt Baker, I pull up Britt Baker and dance with her in that match. And then to see, we'll get into it quickly right after this. But Tracy literally couldn't have been more fun to work. That's one of my favorite matches since I've been released because of just the sheer oddballness of it and just funny business. It was just fun. Tracy Smothers, if you were able to be around him at an indie show, was just the best. I would run into him so much and he'd go, Swoggle, remember that time in Cleveland? I was so nervous, but man, you pulled me through. And I go, I pulled you through? Like, no, sir, not at all. Like it was just great. He goes, I call John Thorne and I tell him that's one of my favorite goddamn matches ever. I love that match. So whenever I saw him and he said that to me, it made me feel good because I don't know. It was just for him to say that, and he's been around. At that time, he's been around forever, and he was just a great human. We all, if you were around Tracy Smothers, you loved being around Tracy Smothers. There's stuff like that I think back on. It's like, man, for him to enjoy the match and to bring it up, he doesn't have to do that, and he really meant it because he said it to Sanjay and Post and all that, and to John Thorne, and just it's awesome. I love that match. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite matches and favorite moments that I ever had on the independents.
The next thing that you have on your list here is you wanted to talk about your feud with Britt Baker. This appears to start. Well, you just talked about how you brought her up to dance during the Tracy Smothers dance, but it looks like your first actual match with her is December 30th of 2016.
I believe I threw her out of their big Royal Rumble esque match. I think that's where we kind of kicked it off. I believe. I'm not sure. To think back now and to say I had a program with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, is mind-blowing. But I remember, like, at the time, peek behind the curtain, everybody. Male intergender matches were a huge hit on YouTube and a huge hit for streaming. Especially overseas, it's always a huge hit. Intergender matches are always a huge hit. And I was like, Thorne, I want to be a huge hit on YouTube. Let me do an intergender something. And he was like, all right, let's try Britt. And so we did it, and it was just fun. She was up for anything. Even at that time, she was incredible. And the fact that we had a Fans Bring the Weapons match. So, crazy moment in the Fans Bring the Weapons match is she was down for literally anything. anything. She just wanted to have fun, and she was like, let's make this cool. Because this was before, I mean, she was already getting looked at by everyone. WWE was looking at her, all of that. But she was just up to have fun and up to do silliness. And the fans bring the weapons match. The finish of it, Adam Cole comes out, and he was just signed to WWE at the time. He comes out at the finish to distract me going into the finish as a complete surprise. And it was just a bonkers finish. It was a barbed wire mandible claw, I'm pretty sure, or she wrapped it around my mouth. We did that. We did tacks. It was awesome. I just loved it. It was so much fun, and she was literally up for anything. And it's one of those things where, again, I think about, man, AIW has been so awesome for me, and like to be able to do those kind of things, and like things that I could never have thought. Now, looking to see what Britt has done and continues to do. And I mean, she's at one point she was the biggest star, not only in the women's wrestling world, but in wrestling. And to see that growth very quickly, also, and to say I had a program with her before all of that is a really, really cool feather in my cap.
Up next is your AIW Tag Team title reign, which looks like it goes from December 29th, 2017, all the way through to September.
It was forever. PB Smooth, this giant of a man, just an absolute giant. They needed something for PB. And Thorne was like, I got this idea. Let's team him up with Dylan. Okay, awesome. And it helped me out, obviously, because then I didn't have to come up with as much stuff. I mean, we wrestled Cheech and Colin Delaney. We wrestled every team around AIW, and it was fun. We had a great, great time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And for them to trust us, or for Thorne and Biggins to trust me being a tag champ and the world not looking down on them for being such, was a pretty awesome honor. During that, I tagged with PB, and also in a 6-man tag, I tagged with PB and Cowboy Bob Orton, which is mind-blowing because there is a photo of me doing a RKO to Mance Warner with Bob Orton watching in the background on the apron. I sent it to Randy Orton, and I said, this might be the coolest photo in my life. Orton loved it, and he goes, Dad's still making towns, I see. And it was like such a cool moment for me. I was like, I'm teaming with Bob Orton. Of course I have to do an RKO. Of course. And it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun working with PB, and I think we helped each other a lot. I helped him come out of his shell, and he was very, 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 very new and early in his early stages of wrestling and working shows at the time. So it was nice for me to almost be able to take him under my wing and for them to entrust me with that and help him break out of his shell. Him challenge me to not do the same song and dance every show. It was a lot of fun. We really, really did have a ton of fun. So, like I talked about earlier, my first bookings for AIW were during J-Lit weekend, which again, it's the JT Lightning Invitational Tournament. Their biggest tournament of the year. It used to be 2 days. Literally, they do 2 days of it. It was Friday night was night one. Saturday afternoon was like a student show. Saturday night was night two. It was an insane weekend. Now it is just one show. But, man, so I had some memorable J-Lits. I wrestled Mordecai. Kevin Thorne came back for one night only as Mordecai. And there is a good gif of him destroying me with a trash can. But he swung this. He wasn't a thrown one. We were brawling in the crowd, and it was one of these little, like a plastic concession trash can full, and he just baseball batted it, and I didn't see it coming. Just whap right in the back of the head. Thank God I got a hand up last second. But there's that. I wrestled Pat Buck, and that was a really, really fun one. Pat and I have always been very, very close, and we had a lot of fun. Like, we had a ton of fun. He pushed me. He wanted... Oh, that was when I did AJ Swoggle. That's right. That's when I did AJ Swoggle on the Indies. That's right. I did that. I did a bunch of AJ stuff during that match. I completely forgot about that. So I did it that night. And then I also wrestled Eddie Kingston. And Eddie and I have always been very, very good friends because of AIW. Literally, my friendship with Ethan Page is because of AIW. My friendship with Eddie Kingston is because of AIW. I have so many friends simply because of my work in AIW and my bookings in AIW. Eddie Kingston has turned into a close friend and someone that I just absolutely adore because of AIW. And I had a really, really fun idea because I was like, man, I can just get beat up by Eddie. Because I was a heel in AIW at the time. And I was like, I can just get beat up by Eddie. But I also can't take his suplexes because I will die. And then I got it in my head. I was like, hey, Eddie, can you do your backhand that you light on fire? Can you light your hand on fire and give me a back fist? And he goes, sure. Do you want to do that? I go, yes. So I sent a student to get a bottle of Bacardi 151 because we're going to do it. And then John Thorne talked me out of it. And I'm very, very glad he talked me out of it. And so then we just had a bottle of Bacardi 151 that I just gave to the students. And I was like, I don't need this anymore. I'm very, very happy he talked me out of this idea because it would have been very dumb and could have been went very wrong. But J-Lit weekend, it was an insane weekend every weekend. Man, it was nuts. It was just an absolute party, and the fans knew it was going to be a party weekend, and it was just a crazy weekend. I loved it. AIW really brought my love and continues to bring my love of independent wrestling literally every show I come back there for.
Well, we've talked about him a lot already. You've talked about your friendship with him, but you also had a match against John Thorne.
Peek behind the curtain. Guys, following this episode here, I'm going to interview Thorne for a small talk. I'm breaking the fourth wall. I'm interviewing Thorne for a small talk. It's going to be following this episode. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this match in depth. He beat the shit out of me so much. He has so many clips of him just destroying me on things. But what happened was it was supposed to be me and Joey Janela. And I was like, man, that's going to be great. I was really looking forward to it. Janela had flight issues literally all day. And I was so bummed out. And I said, well, Thorne, looks like it's you and me. He goes, I'm not doing that. I said, it's you and me. That's the only person I'm wrestling is you. I'm not doing anything else. And then I bullied him into it. And so we left the venue to go get his gear and then come back. So I was like, hey, looks like you got to fill in for Joey. No, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm not wrestling anyone else. You're it. And there was no other options. And so he filled in, and I'm very, very pissed. I suggested it because it took days off of my career. He gave me a clothesline that everyone warned me, watch the clothesline. It's going to be in your throat. And it was in my throat. And then he blames it on my height, even though he is maybe 4'7" and I'm 4'4". He is a very small human. And so it's not a height thing. Then he did a boot wash with me against the barrier. And I put my arm up like this to kind of take some of it off. and he kicked my arm through the barrier. He kicked me so hard. And there were so many things where he's just so heavy, but it was, man, we just had fun. And it was one of those things where then, like, months down the line, we tagged. It was me, him, and Ethan Page against a bunch of students. And it was just fun. It was what wrestling should be at this point in my life. I just tagged with Bender, Nick Kaluch. I just tagged with him. And we still have fun every time because we just make each other laugh and we just giggle and this shouldn't be a job. I say it all the time, guys. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to work. I don't want a 9 to 5. This shouldn't feel like a 9 to 5. This should feel like fun. Otherwise, I will go and get a 9 to 5. When it's not fun, I'm going to go and get a 9 to 5. But it's just one of those things like, man, and then I remember getting to the back after the me and Thorne match and going, man, I'm really, really happy Janela couldn't make it because that was a ton of fun. And it was just, I was very, very happy that we got to do that. I mean, I had my quote unquote retirement, and everyone thought it was going to be my retirement. It was me, Hawkins, me, Myers, Cardona, and Smart Mark in an 8-man. And then Landon was there. And then I left my shoes in the ring, and everyone, including me, thought that was going to be my last ever match. And because I did, in all honesty, I did. I didn't even have that on the list to go over, but I just came up with that in my head now. I brought Landon to the show because then we had Toy Hio, and we made a trip out of it because Landon always wanted to go to AIW. And Landon was in the balcony at that show, and I called him into the ring. And there's literally a photo in the ring of me and him hugging. I told him to go on the second rope. He got the craziest pop ever. And I remember saying to him, like, after that, all right, let's go home. And it was one of those things where I said that to him. And in my mind, it was like, let's go home. Kind of like, I'm done with this. I'm okay. But then it gets to be Monday or Tuesday, and you're like, you fucking idiot. You're not done. Come on. Don't talk so stupid. But yeah, it's one of those things where I've had so many cool moments, and they just continue. They continue. They absolutely continue there, and I love it. I love Cleveland. I continue to like have fun there. Landon wants to go to every AIW show, and it's had me, like I said earlier with Eddie Kingston, I've made friendships and lifelong friends now in Ethan Page, especially in Danhausen, in Colt Cabana, and I have become closer because of AIW. It's things like that Mance Warner and I have become buddies because of AIW. It's things like that I really, really am like indebted to, because I never would have met these guys if I didn't have such a run there and continue to have such a run there.
We're going to continue on with the next one on the list. It is your match on April 4th, 2019, WrestleMania weekend against Scott Steiner.
Thorne came up with this idea for me and Scott Steiner. And then Mikey Blanton from Black Label Pro had the idea for me and Nick Gage. And then Pat Buck had the idea for me and Dan Moth, all in the same weekend. And I literally was like, I named it my I'm Not Dead Yet tour, because if that weekend didn't kill me, nothing could. I really, really felt. Scott Steiner. I literally don't know what to say. I am very happy that the match happened. I am very happy that the match got a lot of buzz. Xavier Woods and the late Luke Harper came to watch that match. Man, it's incredible. It's incredible. Two guys that just, came to watch me wrestle Scott Steiner because of, and they're on WrestleMania that weekend. Like, it's nuts. Scott Steiner did not want to do a ton. from me. He wanted to do a lot to me, but I remember pitching him Germans, and he goes, "From you?" I go, "Yeah, man. I've been doing like German suplexes." He goes, "Why?" I go, "Okay, we know how this is going to go." And then I remember specifically saying, "Hey, I have a metal rod in my back, so I don't take a ton of bumps. And maybe on the finish, you can't rear back too much." I took at least 3 belly to bellies. And they were rough. It was fun, man. I will say it's a highlight again. That weekend itself, the I'm Not Dead Yet weekend, really is a cool, fun weekend for me to say that I made it out alive of those 3 incredible matches. I had I think it was ended up being 8 matches in 3 days. But I remember just Thorn was the one to really kick it off, and he had that crazy idea, and that crazy idea paid off because it got a ton of buzz. I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy with that opportunity. He kicked me so fucking hard in the face. There's a picture of him just booting me. And there's another one of him in the Steiner recliner. There's a photo that I'm just I'm dead. I cannot move. But I'm very happy. I am so happy that we did it. I'm just, yeah, we got through it. I'm here. I'm above ground.
Most recently, the match that you talked about at the top of the episode, your most recent match on January 17th, 2025 against Microman.
Thorn has been trying to do this match for over a year. Microman has kind of burst on the scene and become a phenomenon online with GIFs and memes and everything. And Thorn's been wanting to do this match forever. It finally worked out. And ladies and gentlemen, I am a very rotund human. Not as rotund as I was, but I'm still a very rotund human. I texted all of my students after I worked Microman saying, I know how you guys feel working me, trying to pick me up, trying to lift me, trying to do things with me in the matches. He is legitimately 3 foot tall. He is. I'm 4'4", and there's that photo. We did a stare off. All I wanted was a stare off, and we did it, and it was great. He is so small. And also, he might be 75, 80 pounds. He is so small, but so heavy and compact. Where I was before the show, I was like, I'm going to gorilla press him. I'm going to give him a last ride. I'm going to do all this. And then I was I picked him up the first time. I go, oh no, I can't do any of this. But it was just about the moments. And there's a really, really a cool bunch of clips you're going to see in the video diary coming out any day, probably out when this drops. But it's one of those things where I was happy. I was so happy with the match. I was so happy. I get to the back, and I was very, very thankful that we finally got to do it and that people enjoyed it, and then it got some buzz. It's one of those things where I said in the video diary, I felt like a rejuvenation lately. The last couple months, I felt a rejuvenation, and I think this year is the year I go hey, can we bring 2016 Dylan back? And 2016, 2017 Dylan. Let's see if he's still somewhere in here, in this current body. But it's one of those things where, man, I really this year, I really am going to test myself and try to push myself at freshly fired Dylan back. And here, and I've accepted if he isn't quite in there, that's okay. because that's 8 years ago, 2 back surgeries ago, a lot of weight change ago, and just again 8 years of time. So if he's not still in there like he was, I'm okay with that. But I want to see, and this year I'm really going to push myself to see. And I'm going to be accepting of it either way. Last night we just had a really, really fun tag match, and I was moving great and I felt great. And I have a bunch of fun matches coming up, and that can be really, really good. But I have to also be in the mindset of, if it's not, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I am going to push myself, though, and really see if he's still there. He is, but he might be very, very buried deep. But it's everything is good. I'm very, very happy. In a nutshell, AIW, I owe a lot to. I owe so much to AIW. Personally, professionally, a lot I owe to AIW. And it's I really do treat it as my second home and view it as my second home. I've grown friendships with fans from AIW. Fans are Patreon members because of AIW and supporters of mine because of AIW. And fans have become friends because of AIW. And just the relationships I've built there. And it's something I really, really hold in a special place. It's I love it. I love it. And hopefully you guys check it out more at AI Wrestling on all forms of social media. Check them out. It's crazy, like, to think of who I've been on shows with and who is just like who I've wrestled there and all of that. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, check them out. Any publicity for them makes me happy, and any new eyes on their product makes me happy.
All right. Well, look, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap this thing up. Dylan, what do we got to do?
Ad break. Guys, let's talk about Mad Cat Beard Care. They make my beard feel soft, silky smooth, and they can do the same for yours. A one-man show since 2019, Mad Cat uses a portion of their sales to care for local stray cats. That money covers their medical bills and finds them safe spaces and forever homes. Their products are made to order with vitamins and all-natural oils that promote strong, healthy hair and moisturize your skin as well. They've got exclusive scents for myself, as well as other wrestlers like my good pal Brian Myers, Mr. Kennedy, and Ring of Honor legend Delirious. Make sure to check out all of their scents, along with my Swoggle scent, which has notes of lavender and sage. I absolutely love this scent. And guys, we've got an exclusive offer for listeners of Going Postl. Use promo code SWOGGLED to save yourself 15% on your orders only at madcatbeardcare.com. That is Swoggled with a D on the end, to save yourself 15% on your orders at madcatbeardcare.com. Guys, that's 15% with promo code SWOGGLed, and remember, the Mad Cat makes a happy beard. Guys, thank you very, very much for taking a trip down memory lane, current going-ons lane, all of that for my journey thus far from day one-ish to current day AIW. Thanks. All forms of social media at Dylan Postl, at Going Postl Pod on all forms of social media. We talked about it at the top of the episode. ProWrestlingTees.com/Swoggle. New designs all the time. Would love you to check them out. YouTube.com/Dylan Postl. Video diaries, unboxings, and even more. All that jazz. YouTube.com/Dylan Postl. patreon.com/PodXchange. That is patreon.com/PodXchange, where you can get early and ad-free listening to this episode, bonus content from this podcast, and so much more from the whole PodXchange family, which is Going Postl, the Small Talks. And George, tell them all about it.
Man, it's so weird when you set up the show and I already have to change the script of how I have to plug the podcast. So yeah, like Dylan said, we are the Game Marks podcast. We break down a different video game each and every week. We used to be strictly wrestling video games, but as of late, we have been sprinkling in some other games. We are currently in the middle of playing two of the more iconic TMNT video games. We played the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game on NES, which was just as hard as we remembered.
Yeah, I saw the clips of it.
You know what it was? It was one of those things where, and we talked about this in the episode, it's challenging and it's really hard, but it's not a game that you're like, I'm mad and I don't want to play it. It's so hard. You're just like,
oh, really?
I want to figure this out and keep going. But we are available wherever you listen to your podcast and on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. Now, Dylan did a fantastic job with all of his plugs. Very proud of him, except he missed two. So I'm going to do them right now. The first one is for SwoggleAuction.com. We wanted to remind you. You can go, and if you don't have a Whatnot account, you can make one and get a free $10 credit for Dylan's next Whatnot stream, which, remind the people, Dylan, is when?
February 12th, Wednesday, February 12th. Whatnot. We're going to have a huge, huge live stream. Wednesday, February 12th.
We have a shop. It is PodXchange.shop, PodXchange. We have hats, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, magnets. I believe that is it. So, Dylan, whenever you're ready, you can hit the folks with that signature Dylan Postl sign off. What song do you have this week?
You doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces. You doing that thing you do.